Right, I've drilled out all of my vent holes. I'm using the round vents that I showed in the original box build. You need to measure the internal measurement of these so that you can keep the lip on them. I've actually got two kinds of these ones. These ones are, so we can get that. These are flat on the surface, and these ones have got like an indent in them. So I'm going to put these ones up high on the hot end where they can't reach them, and I'm going to put the flat ones like this down the cool end. I've got 3 vents in total down here. There's a hide that goes here, if you remember. And these just literally push in and sit. Now, because they're against the polystyrene, they don't grab very well, and I don't actually like the colour of them. So I'm going to put them in, and then to kind of disguise them a little bit, I'm going to paint over with the tile adhesive so it matches everywhere else, and they disguise in a little bit. It also sticks them in so that they'll stay there. So yeah, just going to touch them all up, go all the way around, stick them all in. What else have I done since? I've managed to glue all of these extra bits, you know, the bits that were separate that I put on afterwards. I've got coats all the way around those. Still a few bits here and there that need a little bit more, but that's had 4 coats so far to get those in. I might actually put a rock here between these two, so I'm not convinced that that's as solid as I want it to be, but I'll have a look at that as I get on. Give that a bend. That's pretty solid. Yeah, I'm going to get another coat on everything anyway and get all these vents stuck. Probably get a couple of coats on them as well. I'll give everything a coat of varnish as well. I've varnished all of the outside, give it all a good sand down first. The reason I've done that is because I want to get my rails, the glass tracks, top and bottom, I want to get those on, and I don't want to have to cut in with the paintbrush. You know, I want to get the inside sealed up really well as well. So yeah, it's had a couple of coats. The inside's actually had 4 coats. This back rail across there has had 4 coats already. The floor will have another couple of coats before I'm done. So yeah, I'm going to get on and stick these vents in, and then I might come back and have a look at getting these rails on and show you how they work. Right. I've got 3 different colours of grout. I've got this is a charcoal grey colour, and I've got a pecan and almond. Don't know how this is going to turn out, but I'm going to give it a go. I'm going to try and do the same kind of principle that I would do with with artist acrylics. I've watched so many YouTube videos, none of them quite work out like on this, because it's a different material. This is very porous, it's a completely different material, but I'm going to go for the same kind of idea with getting the dark stuff on first, so it fills all the dark, fills in all of the deep ridges with a dark colour. I'm going to mix it quite runny, so the colour I'm going to go for is some of the pecan mixed with some of the charcoal grey, which should give me a darker version of the pecan colour, which is kind of what I want all over. I'm going to use the pecan for the most of it, and then lighten it and darken it with either the charcoal or the almond coloured grout. So I'm going to mix this up, get it runny, and start painting it, and come back and see where we get to. This is where it may all go wrong, but if it does, what's the worst that can happen? I mix up some more tile adhesive, I get another coat on, and I start again. You know, how hard can it be? Right, so I'm going to mix this up, and we'll come back soon. So I'm quite happy with that colour. It's actually quite runny. I mixed it almost like about emulsion paint consistency, and I'm just slapping it on. The idea of it being runny is that it's running into all of the holes, all of the gaps. all the places that would be dark naturally. So yeah, just slapping it on, digging it into everywhere. I'm not fussed if I miss a little bit. I'm putting a couple of other colours over the top of it, so it seems to be going all right. One thing I have noticed quickly though, because it's running, I'm ending up with like runs like this that look like a paint run. So I'm just kind of coming back over and double checking. There's another bit. Yeah, double checking where I've been. If we can see that that looks like a run, so just rough that up a little bit, take a bit off it, tidy it up a bit. Yeah, there, that's another run, so we'll jab around in there. Yeah, try and tidy it up so it doesn't look like runs, but just keep working over it. It's drying reasonably quick as well, so I expect I might get a couple of coats on this. Yeah, it's drying quite quick. I'll crack on and get this colour all over it, and then see where we go from that. That's where the fun starts, because I am not artistic at all. But well, crack on. So I've let this dry overnight. This is the one coat of the darker colour, the one with the pecan mixed with the charcoal to try and darken it down a bit. When I said I'd done 3 separate mixes, I was expecting it to be a bit patchy or wild different colours, which I was keen on, but it doesn't appear to have ended up that way. It's kind of ended up all one colour, but that's cool. That's what I'm aiming for. I have put my T5 Arcadia lamp back in, just so I can get a true likeness of the colour it will end up. I've now mixed for my second coat. I've got, this is just the pecan with no extra charcoal in it, so it's going to be a few shades lighter than the coat that's already on. I've mixed this a little bit thicker this time. I'm going to paint this all over again, but I'm going to aim to not really get in the cracks, so I'm just going to sort of coat it here and there, dabbing it on in places, but yeah, not trying not to get everywhere, so we end up with some kind of stippling or areas of different colours. So yeah, I'm just not going to go mad with this, but I am going to coat it all over. Can't really catch that on camera, and it actually looks a similar colour, but it will definitely be lighter. So yeah, I'll get on and paint this all over, let it dry and see how that looks. I do have a lighter one that I'm going to add as well, and then I'll probably put some details on it here and there, but I did the hides as well, the hides of our coat. So yeah, I'll get on and paint this and let it dry. So I'm going to put these glass tracks on this Viv. I've already done 3 parts. I've done the top, I've done one at the bottom, but I've set one up ready to do the bottom. I'm just going to use the no nails, solvent free, no nails adhesive again, a few dots on it, and I'm just going to fix it on this here. Now what I've done, because I couldn't buy the tracks in one piece, I've had to do it in 2. I've put the join in the middle. Now when you come to put your glass in, your glass is going to be bigger than halfway, so you get an overlap on your glass, so the glass will always be over the join, so you're never going to catch it with your glass. So I've just put some no nails on that. I'm going to centre it on the rail, make sure these are lined up. I've done the same on the top, just there, they're all lined up. I just line them up, push it in. Now you can hold this down with a bit of tape while the adhesive goes off. You can do the same at the top, but I like to put a couple of pins in it. On the top, it doesn't matter, the glass is never going to catch the pins because of the depth of the rebate. These are different, the top and the bottom are different, but I'll explain that in a second. So on the bottom, I've put the pins on one side of the track here. I've just got 3 in just to hold it in position, and on this one I've put them on the other side. This is because I like my glass will run across here, because I don't really want to see the pins, so my glass is going to run on the back track there and on the front track here. So I've pre-piloted these holes in the plastic, just going to put a nail in, make sure these are all lined up. Tap the then we're going to have to send that home with a nail punch just to push that down. As long as these are flat nails. I don't know if you can see where's my lens, there you go. You see the flatness on them, so that they'll push down really flat and they won't catch when you slide your glass. You can check them with a bit of something, put something in your track and sort of slide them across. You can hear that's not catching. That's because of the ridge in the track. You can also check that your joint's nice and straight. So I'm just going to put the phone down for a second and drive that home. 2 seconds. I'll put the pin in the other end. There we go. So I've sent them home. You just put the nail punch on the top of the pin and drive it right into the groove. Again, just check it with a little something to check that it's not gonna foul when your glass slides. That one could probably do with a little more. The adhesive squeezed out a little bit. I'm going to leave that alone. It will set quite hard, so I'm just going to put a Stanley knife down that and break that off when it's done, rather than try and get it off now, because it will just spread around everywhere. I had pre-varnished these edges on the top and the bottom, just to save me having to get in there with a paintbrush at a later date. It's in the centre of the rail on the bottom, same at the top, so they sit perfectly flat. So yeah, now we're going to look at why the rails are different. So you've got two different thicknesses of rail. The tall one is the top and the short one is the bottom, and the reason for that is to allow you to get your glass in while keeping a lip. So I've set a little bit up here as an explanation. That's the tall one, which is the top. That's the short one, that's the bottom. And I'm just going to use this packer as an explanation. So when you come to put your glass in, you're going to need to slide this up into the track, which allows that to go into the bottom. Now when the bottom one slides back in, it leaves enough at the top to still catch the rail. If I slide that out a bit, that might be easier to see. Now, let's do it from there. That's probably easier. So it slides up into the top of the rail, leaving clearance at the bottom, and comes out. So when you come to put it back in, it slides into the top, right the way up to the top, slides down and slides into the bottom, leaving a lip catching at the top and a lip catching at the bottom. That's how that works. So I'm going to cut the glass for these. Well, I'm not going to cut the glass, I'm going to order the glass. I've made quite a few of these, but I still panic about ordering glass, because it's probably the most expensive part of the actual building of the Viv. So what I tend to do is I buy a sheet of timber. This was just a quarter sheet, 2x4 I think it was. It was about £4. So a small price to pay to make sure you get it right. So what I've done for measurements is I've measured from the top of this lip here to halfway on the top lip, which will allow it to slide in like we've just seen on the other side. So it'll allow it to slide in to that and clear the bottom. So I've cut this piece of it's just a cheap piece of plywood. I think it's 3.5mm thick, but the glass I'm putting in is 4mm, so it's a perfect match. So we're just going to I've cut this, just going to check it works. So we're going to slide it into the top rail, slide it into the top rail, which is working perfectly even though you can't see it, and I'm going to drop it into the bottom rail, and that works perfectly. It's grabbing at the top, it's grabbing at the bottom, everything's good. So just check the slide, check we're not catching, everything works. You need to check the same piece of glass. I'm going to order the same pieces of glass either side for both sides. So just check it works on both sides, because if you've not made your box square, one piece of glass might be slightly bigger than the other, and that works a treat, slides lovely. Now let's come to this centre section. This is the join on the middle of the rails. You can see this overhangs, so the glass is never going to have to actually bridge that join. That works a treat. What I'm going to do with this piece as well, another advantage to this, is I'm going to mark it up with which viv it is. So I've written on that chuck 5 foot, because that's what's going in this viv. I'm going to put this away somewhere safe. I'm going to take my measurements off this toward my glass, so my glass will be perfectly the same size. I've put that, written that on it. I'm going to put that somewhere safe. Now, if I happen to break a piece of glass, I've got a pre-cut board ready to use in an emergency until I wait for another piece of glass. I've got one for every viv I've ever done, but they're it's just handy to keep them. And that's that. That's all about the rails and the glass. So I've done the second coat and well, let it dry, almost dry. It should dry a little bit lighter still. It's not that much different to the first coat that I added the charcoal to, which is quite surprising. I'm thinking this might dry quite a bit lighter. You can see bits of it where it's a different colour. It works better on the on this end. Looks better here than it does on camera, to be honest. But yeah, so I've anyway, I've mixed up some of the lighter stuff now. This is the almond one, and made a start. So I'm just going to try and sort of dab this on, covering a bit less than last time. You know, sort of every coat wants to be a little bit less, so I'm getting more colours through. I am going to add a bit of detail to this with the artist acrylics, maybe a bit of green, sort of moss here and there, a few highlights, a few white highlights, a few darker highlights, but no black. So yeah, I'm just going to crack on and get that done, and leave it properly to dry, and we'll see how it looks. I'm not convinced that second coat that I've put on is properly dry yet. I'm hoping it dries lighter. So I'll let that light colour dry. I'm not very happy with it. I think it's a little bit too it's a bit too harsh, it's too bright. So I've mixed up some, this is a mixture of the lighter one and the darker one, about 50-50 mix. I'm just going to knock this back a bit, so dry brushing it a little bit. So put some on my brush and brush it off, and I'm just going to lightly sort of just go over bits and pieces of it, dabbing it here and there, just to knock some of that real bright colour off. It's just too bright. And yeah, just here and there, dry brushing it over the top to catch the bits that stick out. We'll see how we go with that. Again, that's another colour, so I think that's 4 or 5 different type of colours on here at the minute. So yeah, I'll worm my way around. That looks a bit better, don't it? It's a bit better than that. Yeah, we'll be all right. So that looks a bit better now. I've dried with that second colour on it. What I'm going to do now is go in with some acrylic, artist acrylics, just to add a bit more variation in the colour, a bit more rock-like. I'm going to go in with this one first, jungle green. Mix it really wet, really watery. Tiny little dot that was, but it's still quite thick. And then you just sort of dab your brush off, get your brush almost dry, and then just sort of dab it in here and there, bits and pieces. This is supposed to be a bit kind of mossy. I've already done a few bits. It looks quite harsh like that, but once it dries, it kind of fades away a little bit, kind of blends in a bit more. I'm going to go over it again with a couple of other colours, but yeah, it's just sort of adds more natural colours. I'm going in some of the cracks. You know, I want it to look like moss, so some bits will have it dabbed over twice, others will just have one little bit here and there. That's a nice little example there, actually. You see how that kind of blends in. It's not really green, but it is definitely there. Well, we'll see how this turns out. Bit of a mix of methods with this, to be honest, but we'll see. All right. So I've got the green on, let that dry. It looks quite nice. I've gone into some of the deeper cracks. Kind of look like moss. It's a bit bold in places. What I'm going to do now is go with a lighter colour. This is just a same again, called sand. So it's not quite white, but it's not really brown. And I'm going to dry brush with this one. So all I'm doing is picking the paint up, brushing it almost completely off the brush, and I'm just lightly brushing over the top and catching all of the high points, and it just makes highlights all of the high points. Don't know whether we can really see that on camera, what a difference that makes there. Let's go there, and you just sort of lightly over the top. There's barely any paint on this brush, but all of a sudden it starts to look a little more weathered, a little more old. There's a bit much paint on that brush there, but I'll spread that around in a minute. I'm also going to go into some of the places where the green's a little bit too heavy to sort of soften that up a bit, make it not so harsh. So yeah, just to loosen them up a little bit. I'm going to go all over this. Just puts a highlight on it. Makes everything sort of spring to life, really. Yeah, not pushing this in at all, just literally catching anything that sticks out, any of the high points. Just makes everything look a bit more weathered. Let's go on that one, see if we can get a good yeah. So I dry brushed all over with that light sandy colour. Just got rid of some of the green. It's looking a lot better, but I'm not happy now that there's not a great deal of darkness in there in the rocks. So I'm going to do a similar thing with black. Both the last acrylic that I used for the highlights and this one for, well, dark lights, is that what you call them, low lights. I'm using these neat rather than watering them down. So yeah, same again. I'm just going to pick a little bit up on the brush, brush it off till the brush is almost dry, and then again just lightly go over here and there. I'm going to start down in a corner where no one can see. It's going to be a hide over here, so I'll do a bit over here and see if I'm happy with it, and if I'm not, then I won't bother. Not so sure. It just needs a little bit here and there, I think. Yeah. Well, I'm going to get on it and then I'll come back and we'll have a look what it looks like. So I've finished painting it. It actually looks quite grey on camera, but I'm hoping it's going to be brown when I'm finished. It looks brown to my eye, but that's not really showing on camera. Yeah, some of the black bits are a little bit obvious, but what I found with my other enclosures when I've done them previously, once I seal it with the varnish, all the colours kind of meld together. It doesn't become so obvious. So yeah, I'm just going to varnish it all over with this. No nonsense, trade varnish. It's acrylic based, water based, so non-toxic. Always says on the back, after use, clean immediately after in warm soapy water. That means it's water based basically. I've used this in other vivs as well. So yeah, it's quite runny. It's the same stuff I did the actual box with. So yeah, I'm just going to get this coated all over. Start at the top. You see how runny it is. I'm not going to be shy with it. To be honest, you'd probably get away without sealing it, but this is waterproof as it stands. The tile adhesive and the grout is waterproof. The acrylic paint's waterproof, but well, waterproof, moisture resistant more than waterproof, but it's still porous. So you know, if your animal wheeze on it, it is going to soak in. It's going to be a bit of a pain to clean. Whereas this, I've taken my basking spots out before, just run them under the tap almost, give them a scrub, they'll come up a treat. So what I should say about the hides, any paintwork that I've done on in here, I've also done on the hides to the same sort of patination, so that they match when I put them back in. The hides are outside still, but I've done exactly the same on those. So yeah, I'm going to get this varnished up, and then hopefully it'll meld together a little bit more, and should look okay. So I just thought I'd catch a quick clip while I'm halfway through it, just to show you what this stuff looks like. It's really quite milky look when you put it on. It's white, and it almost, it's got a pink tinge to it, and it doesn't look very clever. But once it starts to dry, those rocks actually look brown now rather than being quite so grey. Some of the harsh bits of black that I've put on disappeared. The green's moulded in. I mean, this will look a lot better when I get my proper lighting in it. But you can kind of see that's the bit that's drying. That's the bit that's not. So you can see the difference. Something else I will say, because this is so runny, is just keep coming back and checking for your drips. I mean, that's not so bad. But when you get drips that sort of hang off the end of a rock, they tend to dry a bit crap. So like that one. So I'm just going to knock that off now while I get the chance. Don't be shy with this stuff. Get it in there. It's runny. Use that to your advantage. Get that to get in all the cracks. Use its properties to your advantage. But yeah, it's starting to look a lot better than that side. Yeah, right. Anyway, I'll crack on and get it finished.